No. So maybe Jesus, then.
Yeah, sure.
Wait, say that again. You do posit he lives. You're just saying you don't know if he's God. You said maybe he's God.
I mean, like I assumed there's a patient zero, a pre-Paul patient zero for Christianity, right? And
Yeah, sure.
it just makes sense to say that it was this particular guy.
You have to admit Jesus existed. It's just a known fact that he existed. Even, like, everyone knows he existed. A known fact. Of history.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be like, like some kind of scholarly consensus. I don't know why the consensus is the way that it is, and I'm just perfectly happy to grant his existence.
You would have to be
like in the sense of a pre-Paul patient zero for Christianity. Sure, that person existed.
Objectively, the person Jesus did exist, whether you like it or not.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm not going to argue over it.
That him having godhood, you could maybe argue about, but Jesus existing is a different person. Jesus existing is a definite fact.
I'm curious why you say that.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, why do you say it's a definite fact? Like, I understand that it's like scholarly consensus, and I assume those people have like good reasons, so that's why I don't pick a fight over the issue. But I don't know what the reasons are.
I mean, you've got the Shroud of Turin. I've got multiple things.
Shroud of Turin.
Yeah.
No. I mean, are you going to say that this shroud is easily explicable? Like, are you sure that you know how this image is made on the shroud?
Who are you asking?
You, yeah, because you seem taken aback.
Oh, I don't know, but do you know? Either one of you?
I don't. I know about it, and I don't know how it's made. I mean, I don't know anything other than the story of the Christian gospel that would explain this.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. How would it explain it? I mean, to say that
God was crucified, and he happens to be the guy that was underneath the shroud when the image was made.
Yeah, but what made the image?
Presumably, whatever was the thing that was happening when Christ was resurrected from being dead underneath the shroud, seems to have been the process that produced the image.
Right. I think that defenders of the Shroud of Turin have to name that process. If they can't name that process, then they're just...
Well, we can at least say it's an energetic process. It's not gobbledygook magic. Like, we're talking about some type of physical states of affairs happening to the shroud. That's how we know that, or that's how we can observe when NASA or whoever does the laser tests on the shroud, when it's more uniform, that the layer with underneath the singular, right, like, the singular layer that's like a breadth, right, like it's so thin. That's how it could explain that image. I would say, like, yeah, this seems to mean that it's energetic. It explains why the thing, if we posit that there was a body underneath the shroud, that might explain how you could see some types of shading that indicate like that bone was being light was passing through in a way that it went through bone somehow and made the image on the shroud. So it would explicate these types of figurements on the starch.
So I think in order to say that the mark is the result of a resurrection, you have to be able to say this is how a resurrection takes place, and resurrections are the kinds of events which leave these marks on cloths.
It's simple. Are you alive?
Me?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Is your metabolic processes and all of your cellular matter energetic?
You mean
are your cells comprised?
Work?
No, it's not potential work, dude. Like, if you're not willing to posit that, our current understanding of the function of cells is according to ATP and energetic processes and structure, and that structure is reliant on the energy itself, then I don't think it's complicated to say, right, that when we're describing a process wherein an image is made, if it's an energetic process, it pertains to the life of the person potentially, in that we are energetic beings, right? Our physiology is dependent on energy. I mean, even if that's the case, what do you mean potential work? Are you talking about cellular work? Because in this case, if it was the case that the person's physical body was undergoing a change according to physical energetic work, like physical potential work.
Yeah, but I think you have to name
and
what
the
that
potential
is.
work, right? What do you mean potential? What? Okay, what do you mean by potential work?
Well, I'm not. Isn't that just
This
what
is
the
just-
definition of energy is? Or
Sure, but that still matches what we're talking about, like
yeah,
cellular
but I think you have to
work.
name the specific process, right? Like I think you have to be able to say this is what happens when resurrections take place.
Okay, are all cellular processes being carried out through a process of potential work? Yes or no?
I assume.
Okay, so at least we could deduce that if the image is imprinted in some type of energetic manner, it's pointing at a specific action according to potential work.
Yeah, but I think you have to be able to say what that action is.
Restoration of metabolic function seems particularly
Yeah,
accurate.
it's self-evident.
Like what made the mark? Like why does some event that
Radiation.
causes a resurrection
Yeah,
also
it would-
cause that mark?
Yeah, it's just
Be
gonna
like
be
radiation or something.
it's gonna be a source of energy that reorganizes the cellular function in such a manner that it continues to metabolize, right? Or maybe even it can unendingly metabolize according to the connection to the potential work, right? I mean,
Be like radiation or something like that.
Well, radiation won't. Ionic radiation will destroy the material, so that can't be it. It seems to be similar to like X-ray radiation. It seems to do the opposite.
Yeah, that's what I
function.
mean. Yeah.
Like infrared light seems to exhibit similar properties. Like when we expose ourselves to infrared light, it increases reactive oxygen species. Okay, so for instance, right, they found that like BPA, right? BPA is like an incredibly toxic substance, unfortunately. They found that the cells
are resurrections natural processes?
What? So it
are resurrections natural processes?
It would be according to what the energy is, like how it comes into function. I mean, if it is just a natural state of affair, then I don't know how you describe that as natural.
Like I guess what I'll ask is, if God wants to resurrect someone, does he have to use this kind of energy?
I think that it's the
Doesn't
case.
have to.
Okay, but if he doesn't have to, then the presence or absence of that energy is not a sign of God's actions.
No.
He means like in the context of raising someone from the dead. So in that,
No, it doesn't have to use that, because if he chose to use that doesn't. If someone chooses to, if God chose to resurrect him in that particular way, it's up to God to show evidence.
He's just gonna say like, well, maybe it's logically impossible. In that case, God can't do something logically impossible. Yeah, it still doesn't entail. Yeah,
he left evidence behind, and the evidence is the Shroud of Turin.
But if God doesn't have to do it that way, then like the presence of that energy, whatever it is neither necessary nor sufficient to say something was a miracle.
What?
What's your standard for miraculous? Like?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the only things worth calling a miracle are things that are not the result of, or events that are not the result of, like potentials in the natural world.
Natural world.
Potentials that, I mean, basically a miracle is something that God does intentionally.
Yeah, no, this is going to be an intentional resurrection. The energetic response allowed for the complete reconstitution of all the cellular processes in the being. He was alive prior, and he's alive again, right? So it has to necessarily be that the state of functioning is what was... well, actually, it's not true, now that I think about it.
Yeah, but I'm just going to say, why does that
it can be
cause mark?
superior. Yeah, it can be superior. Yeah, so the state of affair. Yeah, the human body would not. You're correct. Well, yeah, that's another thing. It's like another separation because he could have been restored to a greater state of function, and then it could have been the case also that either that function caused the image alone, or that the greater state caused the image. So it's a bit interesting. Like,
I mean, let's put it this way:
nevertheless,
when Lazarus was raised, did his shroud also have a mark?
well, I mean, if I don't have knowledge about that, does that mean that's not true?
Hypothetically, let's say he did not, or that his shroud did not have a mark. That just means that shrouds and marks don't necessarily go together, right? Or sorry, resurrections and marks don't necessarily go together.
Well, I don't necessarily have that information. Like the hypothetical seems possible, but I don't know. Maybe they do go together.
It's just like you sort of see my point, right? Like I don't understand why someone would think that a resurrection is the kind of event that would cause the mark on the shroud.
What natural event do you know of, right, that would suffice to explicate this object?
I have no experience of such an event. I also have no experience of resurrections.
Well, I'm saying any normal event, what would cause the mark on the shroud? Like, you have to show what was likely to cause as an alternative for us to say it's unreasonable to believe that this was a cause by resurrection. You should show natural means.
But yeah, don't you? But to say it was a resurrection, you have to like give an explanation for how it could have been that.
Well, it's not only that the shroud is like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not only that this hasn't been explicated yet, also, which could indicate a miracle. It probably is a good indicator that it is a miracle. In that it seems with the modern era, thousands of years later, we still don't have an explanation or any similar object that matches the description of this from any time period available to us all the way up to today. And then furthermore, that the person who happens to be under the shroud seems to match the description of one Jesus Christ who lived in Jerusalem in the 1st century, which matches the dating of the type of folds in the object, right? The linen. It was a royal stitch pattern, right? And they tested the perimeter of the object, and it had been documented that it had been in a fire. So, and that those people in Turin had the method called the French weave, which restored the object without a visible difference other than the linen was different, right? So they want to date it past the time that it was, which still doesn't make it doesn't remove it from being anomalous, because we still don't know how to make the image, right? Since it's not pigment. But it seems to match the stitch pattern in the core of it. It seems to match a royal type, which would have matched what was prophesied by the scripture, that he would be buried, this Messiah would be buried in a rich man's tomb, right? And would raise from the tomb on the 3rd day. It seems really hard to miss, right? That it would probably more corroborate the claim of this person being God, that the image is inexplicable. Right?
So, like, the reason that I am really only interested in the one single question of why we would say a resurrection is the kind of event that would leave that mark is just because I'm like interested generally in like all the different causal claims made about God's relation to the world. Like, why is this event the kind of thing that would have this effect? Like, that's the question I'm interested in. And to me, like, that's just the key question of the Shroud of Turin.
I think what happens is that every time you observe a standard that is seemingly like something you can't rule into a natural process, your knee-jerk reaction is to say this would not fit the description of an evidence for God. Well, I think that in many instances you're probably right to assert that, but I would say you're kind of gratuitous, man.
Like, I think it's impossible to assert a causal relation between a resurrection.
No, but you can't rule it as impossible if you don't. Look, you can't rule it as impossible if you don't know that God exists, right? You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you don't know what you don't know.
I think Christians can't do that, right? Like,
what do you mean?
I think Christians on their own grounds.
We're saying this standard would match. Like, this is a good one. Like,
What standard would match yours then?
Or
You're
let
going to
me
say
put it this
something
way:
ridiculous.
if I was a Christian, I would still be saying the exact same thing.
no, you wouldn't.
I would
mean,
still be a
maybe.
Shroud of Turin skeptic. I would still want to know
No, you could be a Shroud
why
of
a
Turin
resurrection would
skeptic, but-
cause that mark.
Yeah, no, you can be a Shroud of Turin skeptic.
I
in the
know
sense
Christians
that-
are Shroud of Turin skeptics.
but those people don't have like they have a hard time arguing how this isn't a good standard. They could do it. That's literally not what we're talking about. We're just talking about like I would just remind them of like the fact that they've accepted like what better matches. They're just gonna say it's not a good one, and you're the one asserting that standard with some kind of
They
like
don't deny
ability
the
to assert it.
resurrection, though.
Yeah, I would just say like, how does this not match? Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Is that I would immediately bring back to their memory that this seems to match the exact description of what you now believe, right?
So
Yeah,
what
so
would be the
I
thing that
think
makes
there's
you
been like
believe in
1,000
God
years
then?
of like obfuscation going on around the Shroud, right? Like,
Obfuscation.
yeah,
Hmm?
I mean, I think if
How?
this really wanted to be settled, then the Shroud would just be like ripped up and sent to 1,000 different research, like right. Like, to really settle this, you'd have to destroy the Shroud. But of course,
That
it's never
seems
going to happen.
very that seems like what most people wouldn't do. If it's a religious relic, you're gonna say that they're
Yeah, that's why it's
closer
never
to
going to be
ripping
settled
it up.
evidentially.
Yeah, but you're saying like,
If you knew
well,
anything about archaeology, you would know that you wouldn't quote unquote rip it up to get it.
Well, like
You wouldn't rip it up. It's really dumb.
I don't think
What's
it's.
what
I don't
I'm
know why I
looking for?
discerned what you're trying to defend.
Decisive
that.
investigation would involve damage that nobody wants to do to it.
Ripping it up, rip it all up is what you said, right? Like you're
You get
just
that I'm
trying to
exaggerating,
make it,
but it would involve
but
decisive
for what
damage.
purpose? Well, okay, but you could have said they would have attempted a singular, more measured means to understand more about it. And how do you think they haven't requested such instances? They have repeatedly requested a double test, which has been rejected emphatically by a bunch of apostolic pope worshiping, quasi quote unquote or so-called Christians.
Decisive research can't be done because it's a religious relic. That just
No,
means the evidential
because
question
a cultist has decided not to allow it, not because Christians don't
for
want
religious
to know.
purposes. That just means the evidential question can't be settled.
Look, it can be settled according to the nature of the object. We have tested it, and many curious things have come out of it scientifically, including biologically, about the Shroud of Turin. And so you're just going to have to go over it again. It's pretty ornate. I would spend some time. Like, most people don't want to. They just want to categorize it as it's just a fake. It's just a weird, ancient, nonsense object that was caused by some other process that I don't want to bother getting into right now. But one day I will, and I'll refute it. Okay, like that's just not how that went.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still always going to come back to me. Like, what's the relation between the event of a resurrection and the event of that mark being made? Like, until somebody explains to me that relation, I think it's all just kind of made up.
Well, I mean, I could put you in an X-ray machine, right? And I could sequentially apply to you types of energy, right? That would literally disassociate all of your cells, right? In such a way that you would die. Right. So this isn't that type of energy. It seems possible if we are energetic beings that the inverse can be applied, and the person can be possibly resurrected. We are energetic beings. That's how we even exist.
Yeah, you don't know what the exact causality of it is. We're trying to see, it could be a metaphysical causality. You don't know what it is. You're trying to see it from a human perspective. And
Yes,
the problem is the problem is that if you're not going to see the metaphysical, then that's the problem.
Well, I don't know what metaphysical means here. Right, like if you want to establish that there's a relation between these two events, then just establish it.
Well, I'm saying there's a relation between physics and God and a sort of radiation.
Describe that relationship.
Okay,
Physics,
what secures energy?
So what I'm saying
don't know
is
what that question means.
hang on, let me finish. So what I'm saying is there's a relation between God. So you've got three entities in this specific scenario. So you've got God, the Shroud of Turin, and then some radiation that we don't quite understand yet. We don't know the exact type of radiation. I'm calling it radiation, but as a analogy, but I don't know what you would technically call it. But I'm calling it radiation. That's how most Christians see it.
You see, that's part of the problem, right?
What's radiation now?
How's that a problem?
I mean, part of the problem is we have to pick like a random word for one of the factors because we have no clue what that factor is.
But that's what most things fall on in life. You don't know everything.
Okay, but we're talking about like the relation between two events, resurrection and mark on the shroud. And one of the key factors we're picking a random word for.
What's your standard for random?
I'm sorry?
What's the standard for random? You're just saying it's a random word. I mean,
well, why are we using the word radiation? Like, what's the radiation is just particle decay, right?
Okay, I thought radiation was energetic responses, right, between particles, right? So I don't. Are you saying that we
Particle
understand?
decay? That's necrosis. What are you on about?
No, not necrosis. He's talking about like particles, like shifting into different states of the.
Oh, I thought you meant that's cell death. Yeah, that's cell death.
Not cell. No.
cells.
He's talking about He's talking about like energetic particles, not molecules.
Yeah,
Or-
sorry, no, I'm getting confused.
Yo,
What up? Yeah, but I would just say. Oh, go ahead. Relax.
no, my bad.
Not really much to say. I'd just say, yeah, you're saying that you can't show a connection when we say what upholds the energy. Say, like, I don't know what that means, so it's just kind of silly. I don't know.
Well,
If we
what
wanna
happens to energy if it's not upheld?
It doesn't exist.
So if energy stops being upheld, then it ceases
Stops
to
existing.
exist.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't understand why. Like,
Can you give me an explanation for why energy exists?
I mean, I think it exists for no reason.
That's a brute fact. It's just no explanation. So when I say it's upheld, you say you don't like that part. Okay, and you say, well, that's not an explanation. So can you rule out the fact that?
Like
Can
there's
you
a
rule
thing
out the
separate
idea that
from
it is
energy
the state
that
of?
causes it to exist? I don't.
Yeah, whatever.
But I don't see what this has to
opposes-
do with the Shroud of Turin.
Well, I would tell you that if you're saying make the connection between God and the Shroud of Turin, I would say like if God upholds energy itself, and maybe this in this specific instance, right? We're talking about some type of manner of energy that I'm not particularly exact about, but seems to be energy. It follows energetic principles like going through solid objects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then I would be curious. Maybe it is the case that God is directly related to this imprint on the shroud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But my whole question is, what is that energy and what does it do?
I'm not entirely sure. It's a good question, but it definitely isn't
But
disassociating
I think that's the
ionizing
question that
radiation.
has to be answered for the Shroud of Turin. And if it's not answered, then it's all just speculation.
Okay,
That's
but
most
could you give us a
science,
reason why
though.
we ought not believe that this is the shroud of Christ?
I would give you a reason to say that there's no reason to believe that there's a
Well, when you say
causal
no,
relation between resurrection and the mark.
when you say no, right, does that mean there isn't?
There's none known.
Are you sure someone doesn't know?
If we grant that, well, but then like the conversation will just become, if we grant that there is a knowable relation, then we're just going to say we know how God performs miracles.
Wait, do you say there's no connection between the resurrection and the what?
And the
Between the
shroud of
resurrection
Turin.
of Jesus and the mark on the shroud. Like,
Oh,
are
mark on
resurrections,
the shroud.
the question is, are resurrections the kinds of events that leave that kind of mark?
We don't. That's not the question.
Well, it's my question.
Question is, does the shroud, after analysis, right? Can we conclude that it more than likely is associated with Jesus Christ burial? That's what we're trying to associate.
Right,
Because there are
but I
people
just want to
out
know,
there,
are resurrections the kinds of events
He
that Mark's
there-
talking about?
there are people out there that even doubt the existence of Christ. Do you understand that, right?
No, he's just not one of them. He's just not one of them. He
Yeah,
said,
that's fine. That's fine.
Which, yeah.
The explanation, by the way, that's given for the image is that during the resurrection, this is what I've heard. This is what I've heard from faith. But the explanation is that during the resurrection, there was some type of photo like imaging effect that had occurred, electromagnetic imaging, whatever, that left that image almost like a photograph. That's
Yeah.
the explanation I've heard.
Yeah, why does that happen during a resurrection?
That's kind of irrelevant.
Why?
Because the explanation could just be, okay, energy was input to this system, and that's the mark that was left. That's the explanation that you
Yeah,
got.
but why?
But there doesn't. You don't need to have the answer to the why. Do you get it? Like,
Okay,
there's
but
plenty
then
of,
the question can
there's plenty
change.
of questions.
The
There's
question can
questions
change
that
when
we-
God performs a
Is my
resurrection.
mic working?
When God performs a resurrection,
There's
does he have to
questions.
do it that way?
There's questions about physical. Thank you. There's questions about physical phenomenon that you don't have an answer to, and me just asking you why doesn't change the fact that those things occurred, and you might have an explanation in the future.
So now I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, I know.
Like
Right,
if
right.
God, if God did use that energy to resurrect Jesus, the question is going to be, does God have to use that kind of radiation? Like, is this
Yeah,
Maybe not.
is this like a
that.
limitation on God that he must use this method
Maybe
to
not.
resurrect someone?
Maybe not.
I answered that question.
Maybe not. But what does that have to do? Again, what does the answer to that question have to do with the fact that it occurred? I'm truly not understanding.
It's
If God
like
doesn't have to
anything.
use that kind of
Let me answer
resurrection,
this question.
that
It's like
radiation.
anything. When your mum marks a piece of paper, or your teacher marks a piece of paper with a red pen, and then uses a blue pen, does that prove that the teacher can only use a red pen? No.
No.
Can go out and use a blue pen, then a red
Yeah.
pen, then a purple
Yes,
pen.
but the
then-
presence of a
that's
red
what I'm
pen-
saying.
But then the
You
presence of
have
a red
to-
pen doesn't prove the teacher wrote it.
And what they're doing, you have to understand, what they're doing is inserting baseless out, and in an effort to kind of decrease the odds that this thing is what it's purported to be. That's what they're doing.
Yeah,
And you could
I
do
know.
this.
No, not at
You
all.
could do this with any like physical phenomenon that we have a very small understanding of, and it would be the
But King
same.
of Kings example was really good, right? The teacher example. The presence of a red pen doesn't prove the teacher wrote it, right? Because the teacher could have used a blue pen, or somebody else could have
And
used a
you-
red pen.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't just go by the fact that there is a red pen. Just like with the Shroud, we don't just say, "Hey, there's an image here. Let's just conclude it's Christ." No,
And if God did not have to use that kind of radiation, the presence of that
Irrelevant question.
radiation doesn't mean it was a divine
Dude.
event.
he's just trying to say,
Irrelevant
he's just
question,
trying,
dude.
look, Valerian, he's just trying to say, we started off and we said that there's sufficient evidence for the resurrection. He's just asking what it is. And then we said the Shroud is also available as a phenomenal
I know.
object.
I get it, but he's doing what they all do. Is that when you give them a piece of evidence, they just start again faithless speculation, hyper skepticism, like all that.
You got yourself caught. Sir? Now what's the next step of your master plan?
Crashing this.
Conversation.
No survivors.
Well, that's
Just like
completely
with the
false.
teacher.
That's
Okay,
completely
like
false.
with
I
the
reject
teacher
that
when-
entirely.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, let's say the
Guys,
teacher
whoa.
did use
No,
a
no,
red
no.
pen.
I'm just
okay, it's
rejecting what
okay,
he
guys,
says. That's,
guys.
he's just making stuff up here.
Just real
What else
quick,
would
can I
it be
read?
then? What else would cause the resurrection then?
But this is what, just real quick, this is what he's doing with your teacher in the pen example. If you tell me, well, more than likely, yeah, the teacher used a red pen, so it's probably the teacher's pen. And then I come up to you and said, well, why didn't he use a blue pen? It doesn't really do anything for that conversation.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you you can make a probabilistic argument, right, about the teacher always using the red pen from past events, right? Apply that to the Shroud of
Yeah.
Turin.
Yeah,
Make the exact same argument for the Shroud of Turin you just did for the
he
teacher and
didn't
the red
have
pen.
any type of photographic technology back then, sir.
So I'm asking, use
So
past
the theories
experience
that have been
to show that
purported
resurrections
that
are the
made
kinds of events that cause
the
that mark.
theories that have been purported
In other words,
to
point
make
at
that
past
image.
resurrections. that caused that mark.
Among the theories that have been put forward is there has needed to be such a strong electromagnetic force that wasn't possible like then that created the image.
Okay, so you don't have an analogy to the teacher using the red pen, right? Because there is no past experience here.
No,
Because
so,
there is no past
okay,
experience of resurrections.
What would be the past experience of resurrections then? Because this is the only
Presumably
resurrection
there isn't
that's
any.
happened.
Wait, my cut out. What did he say?
No, hang on. So this has been the only resurrection in history. No, actually, this and Lazarus. So, yeah, this and Lazarus. So these are him and Lazarus have been the only two resurrections. Yes. So if you can name any other resurrections, yes. There isn't any. Yes. So these are
because the
proof
analogy
of
to the teacher with the red pen is that the teacher usually uses the red pen, past experience. There's no analogy for the resurrection.
With the red pen discernible, how do you know? How do you know it wasn't?
How do I know it wasn't what?
How do you know it wasn't somebody else with a red pen?
Like I said.
I mean, how do I know there isn't an alternate explanation for the red mark?
Yeah,
that's my point. Right? That's my point.
No, wait. Does it do anything? Wait. I'm trying to show him something real quick that you're not getting. Discernible. Does me introducing another question or hypothesis do anything for the current probability that it probably was the teacher with the pen?
No, not at all. I have no problem with the claim that it was probably the teacher with the red pen, right?
Okay.
But that's based on past experience of the teacher with the red pen. If it's not, I don't know how you get that conclusion.
No, that's based off other people telling you this teacher used a red pen before.
Yes, that's
they could have used
experience.
A blue pen before. Your past experience has nothing to do with it.
It's past experience in general, right? The past experience of humans.
And what we know of at the time, there was no type of energy manufacturing device strong enough to produce those images. That's our past experience. That's history taking into account what happened. And we're saying from there that, hey, maybe this is something crazy.
What kind of radiation?
Again, the theories that I've heard say that it would have to have been some type of electromagnetic or light ray, something like that, to produce something like that. Because they can't, because the theory on your side is it was a painting, I believe. Now,
I haven't put forth a theory.
To recreate what?
Well, I haven't put forth a theory, but I already said to King of Kings 20 minutes ago.
Well, I'm telling you
the
opposing
description
theory
of the radiation has to be arbitrary.
Well, wait, either it was a painting or some guy. I mean, isn't there 3 alternatives? Either it was the resurrection.
Oh, I don't know.
Either it was. Well, what do you mean you don't know? You have to come up with a hypothesis, aren't you? Aren't you like the science dude? Isn't science aren't you about science? Aren't you an atheist?
Why do I have to come up with a hypothesis?
Yeah,
I have no past experience.
So just to get this straight, you approach the mystery completely blindly. You approach mysteries blindly.
I have no past experience to draw on here.
So then why even?
Neither does anyone.
Dude, you don't need a past experience to make a hypothesis. What are you talking about?
That there's no probabilistic claim to be made about what happened there.
What?
Dude, you can make a hypothetical or even a hypothesis.
Then give me a specific one.
Doesn't relate to your past experience.
Give a specific one. Because the hypothetical explanations I always hear are vague wavings in the direction of radiation.
Shroud of Turin. We have no other image that we.
You're cutting out.
What would be the other reasoning then?
Thing in history
if you're so insistent that we're wrong, what would be the other reasoning? You should be able to come up with it at the click of a finger.
I'm insisting you're wrong to say you have good reason to believe that a resurrection is the kind of event that causes that mark.
So what is your reasoning of it then?
Put forth. What does it matter? What does it matter that we don't know the process?
Because if you don't know that a resurrection is the kind of thing that leaves that mark, why are you saying that mark was left by a resurrection?
Because the other hypotheses that have been put forward aren't adequate at all yet.
Yeah.
And
then how is a resurrection inadequate?
That
because you don't know how a resurrection affects
life
clothes.
was input into that body, it probably had to do with inputting energy in some form, shape, or another.
Why?
However God did it. You're asking for the mechanism by which that happened. But
But
we
now
know,
you just have to explain how
but
this
we
energy
know
causes
through
resurrections.
sorry. We know from our past and prior experiences, the only thing that can leave a photographic imprint seems to be energy in the form of light. That's how photographs are largely made.
Yeah, but now you have to explain how this energy causes a resurrection.
That's where our prior history comes in. You are not bringing anything to the table.
But now you have to explain why this kind of energy, what kind of energy this is,
No, we
and how it
don't.
causes a
We
resurrection.
We don't have to explain that.
If
All
you
we
don't
have
know
to
what
tell
energy it is
is
and what it did,
is that a
why are we talking
very
about it?
high magnitude of energy was involved. A magnitude of energy that was not obtainable in that time.
Yeah, what is it?
And then
What
we
did it
can
do?
leave it at that. You again have not brought anything to the table. But
Yeah, what is it
you
and what does it do?
accept that it was a resurrection, but man, I would at least hope you come with some theory.
Yeah, what is this energy and what does it do?
We don't need to provide that.
Obviously, you do if you want to say there's a connection between the two events.
We don't have to provide you what is dark matter? Discernible?
I have no idea. I'm not a physicist.
Do you believe dark matter probably
I'm not going to be able to
exists?
answer any questions about physics.
Do
I
you
promise
believe
that.
dark matter probably exists?
I'm not going to be able to answer any questions about
Oh,
physics.
interesting.
I
You're not
barely
going to be able
remember
to
high school
answer.
physics.
I wonder if it's because you're caught. Do you
I
believe
don't know
in
why
black
you're moving
holes
away from the
discernible?
question.
Do you believe in black holes discernible?
Presumably, but I barely remember high school physics. Why do you want to talk about physics with me?
Okay. Oh, you can't really explain to me what a black hole is, right?
No, obviously I can't. I just told
But
you
you
that.
believe that they exist?
Presumably.
What type of energy is involved in creating a black hole discernible?
I already told you I barely remember high school physics.
Oh, you don't know.
No, I don't.
Oh, do we have a good understanding of
Why
what's
are we
involved?
running
like,
away from
with
the actual
black hole?
question?
No, I'm
I'm not the
turning
one
your
here
question
saying
on
things
you.
about
I'm
physics.
turning your
You are.
question on you. You believe things. Number one, you have no idea how to explain them. Number two, you can't even reiterate to me like a rudimentary
Yeah, so what?
understanding
I
of them.
don't care about black
But
holes. This is
interesting that
irrelevant
you
to me.
hold to them.
This is just running away from the issue.
No, it's not.
Like
My
if it turned
point
out that
is,
the
we
standard
don't
theory
have
of
to
black holes
provide
was
you.
false tomorrow, it
We
wouldn't be
don't
relevant
have
to
to
me at all.
provide you. We
Right?
don't
It
have to
wouldn't be relevant to
provide
me at all.
you.
All these questions,
We
if the
don't
standard
have to
ideas of them turn
provide
out to be
you. I know
false, it's
you're like
irrelevant to
super
me.
like. I know you're super uncomfortable right now.
Sorry,
We don't
did you
have
hear what
to
I said? It's all
provide
irrelevant
you
to me.
an
I
exhaustive
don't care about
mechanism for
physics.
the phenomenon. We don't have to provide you an exhaustive mechanism for the phenomenon, just like you don't have to provide us an exhaustive
I'm
mechanism
not
how
making
black
those
holes
claims.
form for us to agree that it probably has something
So
to
I
do with
see that you're
energy.
desperate to change the subject, and that's great.
I know I'm not. Black
You're
holes
changing
have
the
something
subject.
to do with energy. Here's discernible's position. Ready?
It's not.
Black holes
Whatever
have
you're about to
something
say,
to do
it's
with
not.
energy. Black holes being created have something to do with energy. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it happens. I can't tell you what kind of energy it is, but it has something to do with energy.
Oh,
Here's our explanation. Here's our
yeah, I
explanation for
might
the
say
tomb.
something
You
like
ready?
that, but I don't start
Here's our
discussions
explanation
about
for the tomb.
physics
You
because
ready?
I don't
You
know
ready?
anything about physics.
Wait. You ready? Hold on. Discernibly. You ready? Here's our
So
explanation
you're
for the
just
tomb. Ready?
changing the subject, right?
No, I'm not. Tell me how this is different. Ready?
So Buffalo,
The
King of
the
Kings, we're just letting
shroud
this
was
guy change the
created
subject
by
and
a
steamroll the
form of
room
energy so
because he
vast,
got
we don't
frustrated.
really know how
and
it
he's just going
happened.
to steamroll. Is that how
Discernible
this is going to go
says,
now?
no, I'm not steamrolling.
Is this
You're
how this is
just
going to
looking,
go?
you're
He's just going to
super
change the
discernible. You're
subject
obviously
and
super
not let the
uncomfortable right now.
not let the original discussion go on.
Discernible, you're
He's just
super
going to
uncomfortable
run.
right now, dude. You're
Buffalo
super
King,
uncomfortable. You're
he's want to do a
talking over
mod.
me and you're like super uncomfortable because like you've been like caught in a corner. I
What
get
do you mean
it, but
caught
let
in
me
a
finish and
corner?
then you
I
can
said
like
I don't know
reply to
anything
it.
about physics, right?
No, but
This
you
is
can,
irrelevant.
yeah, but you can reply to me when like I'm like,
And
give me
yes,
like,
maybe I do have a stupid
give me
position
like
on
10
flat hole,
seconds.
on
Give
black
me like 10
holes, right?
seconds. I'm
If you
pleading
ask
with
me
you.
questions about black holes, I will probably
I'm
say a
pleading with
ton
you.
of
Yeah,
false
you're not
things.
getting the
So what?
connection, but if you let me finish, maybe you'll get it.
Okay, so the discussion has been filibustered into
No,
oblivion?
it's okay.
That's
Bro,
what's
you
going
can
on?
run away, Discernible. We'll just
Buffalo?
talk about you when you leave. We'll talk about you after you
Buffalo,
leave.
you mod? You're just letting the discussion
You're
get...
not. You're interrupting me, dude. They're not going to do anything for you. You're interrupting me.
Yeah, you're the one who just derailed the entire
Are you
discussion.
going to stop
Buffalo?
talking like
Yeah.
a 15-year-old and like let me finish?
Can we go back to the actual discussion?
No, I'm going to finish. Are you going
Can
to
we go
stop
back to the
talking?
actual discussion?
Are you going to stop talking like a
Let's go back to
15-year-old?
the actual discussion.
Discernible, I get that you're
Let's
super
go back to the
uncomfortable,
actual
bro.
discussion.
I
rather
get
than
it.
this
Discernible,
derail.
I've been in your spot.
His whole point is you're just asking questions where like I said earlier, it's about metaphysics. And you're not willing to accept metaphysics.
No, King.
No, I'm
He's
asking about the
not
relation
King.
between two
King.
events.
The point, King. He holds to phenomenon that occurs.
Yeah, so now you're back
He
to
has
the
no
now you're back to the
explanation,
filibustering
and he
and running
can't
away from the
provide
issue.
you with anything at the moment.
Now
Yet
you're back
he
to the
holds to
filibustering
that
and running away from
phenomenon.
the issue. Can we just go back
King.
to the original discussion?
And then he's gonna
This is
probe
just
you and say,
filibustering.
"Why do you believe that phenomenon caused the shroud?" My basic
Buffalo.
He
point
doesn't
is that
believe
he's
in
being a
metaphysics,
hypocrite
so
and
it's
King, and
pointless.
you shouldn't let him get away with it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And he doesn't believe in metaphysics, so it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
Yeah, so I don't know why we're running away from the topic.
Nobody's running away. You keep
And you
filibustering.
obviously
over.
are. This is irrelevant.
No, you keep filibustering
Right?
over.
Like,
I mean, it's
I
evident.
don't have smart things. There we go. Thank
Okay.
you.
This is how the conversation was going. We were talking about that the shroud is evidence for a resurrection of Jesus Christ. Right? This guy Discernible is talking about how do you know that this particular energy that left this mark pertains to a literal divine resurrection? And that's why he's saying stuff. So here you go. Try again.
Buffalo, just let me ask him the question because he's just like
You already
not
asked the
letting
question
me
about
ask him the
physics.
question.
I don't know anything about physics.
Okay, you're gonna get 15 seconds. Okay.
Yeah, I probably need less than that, but I would like an answer for Discernible. Okay, Discernible. Okay. You ostensibly believe that black holes exist. You believe it has their existence came about having something to do with energy. Great. Okay.
Is this your question?
Hold on. Yeah, did that?
He gets 50. Okay, we're gonna start over. We're gonna get 25 for each. Okay, 20, 25.
30 seconds.
Did that sound like a question, Discernible?
30 seconds.
Yeah,
each.
is that the question?
Did that sound like a question to you?
Well, you
You
said
get 30
there would be
seconds
one
each.
question, so I'm waiting for the one
this is a
question.
research. Okay. Oh yeah, you're low IQ. Okay. So then again, you believe that black holes exist having something to do with energy.
Is this
You can't
the one
provide us a
question?
mechanism. Oh well, I'm gonna start again. Buffalo he keeps interrupting like a little petulant
you
child.
can't even just control yourself. Right?
Yeah, okay. So real quick, right? You believe black holes exist. You believe their existence has something to do with energy. You don't really know how. You can't give us a mechanism, anything like that. Cool. We'll let you go on that. The offer on the table, the offer on the table from Christians and those who believe that the shroud is an image that was created by the resurrection is it has something to do with energy. We can't really tell you how, but that's how we do it. You are further probing us after that. How is that? How does that fare for us? Right? And when we ask you about the black hole thing, it's not fair for us to ask you.
Okay, that's 30 seconds old.
No,
Alright, you're
because
on
I'm
the
perfectly happy to say I'm completely ignorant about physics, and I don't know what it even means to say that a black hole has something to do with energy. I don't know what that means.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So, yeah.
I personally am
a
just as
response.
ignorant about physics as you are about the shroud.
Sure, I'd like a response. So,
Okay, go ahead.
we'll go through this like super slow because I have to go in a minute too.
Yeah, so
Do
filibustering.
you believe
yeah,
black
great.
holes exist? You can go ahead. Do you believe black holes exist?
Yeah, so my answer to all questions about
Do you
physics
believe
is
black
I'm
holes
ignorant.
exist?
Yeah, I believe lots of things exist, but I
Do
can't
you
explain
think
it.
do you think anything in this universe that exists has
Buffalo, you just want
something
this
to
thing
do?
to go on like
Has
this?
something.
This is the discussion
this
now.
is questioning, dude. It's just a yes or no. Just a yes or no, bro.
But
Discernible,
he's already
calm
asked
down.
the exact same question.
No,
and
I
already
haven't.
answered.
Discernible, calm down for a second.
He already asked, and
Do
I
you
already
believe
answered.
there's anything
That's the
that
discussion
exists
now,
in
Buffalo.
this universe?
This is what you're enforcing.
Buffalo, can you do something? Can you Discernible? Can you please be like
so you're
normal for
enforcing
like 2
his right
minutes?
to ask the same question and
yeah,
get the
you
same
tried.
answer over and over.
Discernible, do you think anything exists in this universe apart from energy?
Yeah, I don't know the complete list of things that exists. I don't assert one.
Do you hear it, Buffalo? Do you hear that?
Yeah.
That this is all irrelevant.
Okay. By extension, does anything in the universe exist apart from the influences from energy?
Yeah, I just told you I don't know the complete list of things that exists. Like, I'm never going to assert some complete list. I don't know.
When I came in, wasn't Discernible talking about something about particles and stuff like that?
We're talking about radiation.
I certainly wasn't talking about a complete list.
Interesting. Wait, he was talking about what, Buffalo?
Well, he was talking about what? Like, he was
I said I thought that
questioning-
radiation was particle decay, but Google says I'm wrong.
Oh, you know a lot about radiation, but not about...
Oh yeah, I'm a super expert, even though I've said it a dozen times. I barely remember high school
Dude, the
physics.
fact that you can't answer the
So why
energy
are we
question
talking about
is
this?
crazy right now.
You're right, I can't, because I don't remember high school physics. I can't answer
You need
questions
high
about
school
physics, so
physics
why are we
to tell
talking
me
about
that
it?
everything in the universe doesn't have to do with energy?
Yeah, I told you, I don't know anything about physics. So why are we
Dude,
talking
are you
about it?
kidding me right now?
Yeah, so why are we talking about it?
I don't know anything about aerodynamics,
Like,
but I know
why-
maybe like an engine is needed for a plane.
Yeah, so why are we talking about physics? I
Okay,
don't
so-
know anything about it.
So everything in the world has to do with energy coming into having some type of play in its
So
existence, right?
Buffalo, this is what
And
the
then we
discussion
can
is now.
assume destroyed.
You want
And
the
we
Shroud
can
of Turin
assume,
discussion
and
to
we
be
can
over.
assume, and we can
So we let
assume
this
that black
guy-
holes have something to do with energy, right? I think you're being a weasel and not answering
All right,
that
Buffalo,
question.
you win.
Okay.
Discernible, you're a coward.